Something like 80.
Where service? But don't need certificate. I want to say Nico will let you. Yeah, I'm friend me. Kata me doing. I'm saying. What I must say. Elections in tea. I'm richer. See you.
And I have not saying one. We used to not again. We used to it. 6 will use to.
Let's go.
Because we perform we have
We kept telling you, sir, oh, I didn't want to register. Why crashing? Why you? If you have issues, you should have just owned up now. Sharp in your beer. As a man. And now, I'm even the your chair assessment and management evaluation. That's all you do. Hello. 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 Can we begin?
Yes, sir, Doc.
Hello. Okay. So we cannot wait in perpetuity. At least we waited for 11 minutes. It's fine. So let's start. So today we are looking at planning and preparing for teaching. Planning and preparing for teaching. Since all of us are in the classroom, what are some of the activities that we do before we enter a class? Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Yes. I'm asking what are some of the things that we do before we enter a classroom? Before you meet your class for the very first time, what are some of the things that you do?
You need to prepare your lesson notes first, or go through your notes, or revise your notes first.
Okay. So, lesson note preparation. Before lesson note preparation, what else do you do? Before that, you have to do something before you look at your lesson notes. The first time you reported in the school, you said you wanted to teach. What materials were handed to you, and how did you prepare even your lesson notes? Those are the things that I want to find out.
When I started, my headmaster gave me my lesson notes and my class.
Your headmaster gave you lesson notes?
Yeah, that's what he gave me first. He gave me my lesson notebook and then the class to teach, and then my teaching materials.
Okay.
That's what he gave to me first.
So he gave you a teacher's notebook.
Yes.
But he didn't include your lesson note. Was he the one who was teaching the subject before you?
No, he was not teaching the stuff. He was a different person was teaching. Then when I came, he quickly do it reshuffling.
Okay.
They gave
So he
me
gave you that teacher's notebook.
yes.
Okay.
That's what he
And
gave to me.
then what again? He gave a teacher's notebook. And then did he give you the curriculum?
Yes, he gave me the curriculum. Yes, he gave it to me. Give the curriculum.
Did he also give you the prescribed textbook?
Yes, he gave me he gave me the textbooks as well.
Okay.
But then I was in class 6. He gave the class 6 textbook.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
what was he
But
gave?
so those are the things that they gave you before you went to classroom.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Label. What I see is Robbie label. You can unmute yourself and share with us some of the things that you also do or you did before you entered the classroom for the very first day. Label. Hello.
I don't label around label. His doc is calling you.
Kawasaki Ken. You have some interesting names. Hello.
Yes, sir.
What's your name?
Peter.
Peter.
Yes, sir.
Kawasaki Ken.
Yes, sir.
What is that?
My real name is Peter Kawasan, so that's my
Okay.
WhatsApp name.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Peter, are you a
Yes,
classroom teacher?
yes, please.
Okay. What class?
I'm at the JHS level.
DHS. Okay, so your very
Yes, sir.
first day reported to school. What happened and what preparations did you do before going to class for the very first day? Hello, Peter.
The head teacher assigned me to a subject. So I was given using the textbook and some other pamphlet that the school bought for the school. So I went through it and the other ones before I went to class the first day.
Okay. So what preparations did you do before going to class for the very first day?
Yes, after reading the materials, I tried practicing it for my own as to how to deliver the lesson as if the learners were in front of me. Then I tried delivering it on my own and to see what if I go to the class, I'll be able to do it before I went.
Okay. But the points that all of you were skipping is before you prepare your lesson notes, you need to design your scheme of work or go through your scheme of work. Right?
Sure. Yes,
So yes, they'll give you the curriculum, they'll give you the prescribed textbooks. You need to also psychologically and physically prepare yourself to enter the classroom. Right? So it's not just about what you are going to teach. Psychologically, you need to be prepared. And physically too, because you need to look your best. At the very first time you are appearing in full students, you tried to imagine or to identify some of the entry characteristics that they present themselves to in your class. So what is their level of, what are their ages? What did they know previously? Right? And then what are they expected to know? So you go through your scheme of work, and based on your scheme of work, you do your lesson planning, and then you go to school. What was the experience like the first time that you entered the classroom and you were teaching for a very first day? Your first day in school as a teacher. How was it like? Hello? Christian? Hello? Christian,
There are
unmute
mixed
yourself and
feelings.
talk to us. There are mixed feelings. Can you explain
Yes,
further?
sir. Well,
Peter, we are listening.
yes, sir. Because that was the first time I didn't know whether I was on the right track or not, as to how whether I'll be able to deliver the lesson or not.
Yeah. Yeah, so you were a bit apprehensive. At times you can't even sleep well because you don't know how you might fare in a classroom. And the 45 minutes or 1 hour will look like forever. At times you find people, their voices will be shaking, their hands will be shaking, very, very uneasy. But as you persist and you continue to teach, you gain mastery, you gather courage, and then you go to class and teach at times even without proper planning, even though that is not encouraged. But you become so comfortable that you do your teaching almost effortlessly. So yes, we've all been through those experiences before. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir, we are with you.
Yeah. I was just off. I just rejoined again.
Okay. I'm saying that we've all been through that experience before, where you are unsure how you fare in the classroom. And over time, you build confidence and you begin to enjoy what you do in the classroom. So we say that when we are planning to go and teach, right, a lesson, it involves communication and interaction between a teacher and a learner. Teaching is an interaction between a teacher and then the learner. But the focus of all that we do in the classroom is we want students to develop lifelong skills, attitudes, and values that will be useful in their present life as well as in the future. So we are preparing them to acquire skills that will last them through life, to help them solve problems that they will encounter in their day-to-day activity. So when we are teaching, the goal is not only to impart knowledge, but to develop lifelong learning skills, which will help them to solve any problem that confronts them in future. Because society evolves, society changes. Therefore, we need to prepare students not only for today's challenges. But if you prepare them adequately, you can prepare them to solve tomorrow's challenges. Because regardless of changes in technology as well as content, there are certain basic competencies that if a person possesses, a person will be able to solve any problem that confronts him or her in future. Most of the problems that we face in life can be solved through communication, through thinking through issues, through engaging with others or collaborating with others, through research, right? And through the use of technology. Almost all problems that we find in life, we could use these competencies to solve. So we say thus in planning and presenting a lesson, it is expected of the teacher to initiate innovative strategies. Hello?
Hi, Doug. We are around. We are listening.
So
We are listening.
we say that the teacher needs to initiate innovative strategies in the lesson that would induce critical thinking, problem-solving skills and competencies, and other relevant skills in the learner at different phases of their learning. That is why we say that you need to relate the content to the experiences of the learner. And you can only do that when you have various strategies. And the underlining word, that's why I've made it red, is you have to be innovative. You do not have to be conventional. You have to be unconventional, thinking outside the box to come up with strategies that will help the students to develop critical thinking, problem-solving skills at various stages of your teaching. That is why we say activity, activity, activity. And you need to provide a lot of these innovative ways to engage the learners in your class. Are we clear? So
Yes,
we need to limit the lecture method as much as possible. We need to limit the question and answer as much as possible and come up with real life situation, something like scenarios, problem solving skills, things that would induce learning, right? Because it is these skills that ultimately the student or the learners will use in future. A lot of the content that we learned in our formative years, when you grew up, nobody used those knowledge or content again. The example that I often used is when we were in the secondary school and we're learning ICT. We were learning MS Word commands. But who use those commands these days? Society have moved on, right? So most of the content that we teach, even though they are important, over time, they become stale, they become almost useless, they become archaic, outmoded. But it is the skill of learning, the skill of solving problems, the skill of communicating with a fellow human being, the skill of working with people, right? These skills would never fade out. They would forever remain relevant. So if you help learners to acquire these skills, then we have adequately prepared them for life. Do you have any question on what I've said so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir, this is Edward Patrick. Sir,
Okay.
let us help us to understand that a teacher needs to initiate innovative strategy to be able to induce the learners to learn. But as we learned previously, we said that we may see or experience learning when there is a behavioral change. So in this case, is it going to be long-time effect or is going to be an immediate effect? Because if you look at the strategy the teacher need to use, at the end of the day, is it you are going to achieve the problem solving at a go, or is going to be a long time or a lifetime thing that will happen to the students in the long run?
Okay, just hold on. I'll answer the question shortly, okay? Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Yes, so the question is that we say a behavioral change. It is something that we could assess at the end of the lesson, or as we said, it's a lifelong learning. Then when a person dies is when we are going to assess the competence. That's an interesting one. So because the performance indicator, right, is what we expect the learner to exhibit at the end of the lesson. If we stick to the lesson and we implement it as it has been outlined or as it has been given, at the end of the lesson, the learner should be able to exhibit those competencies. However, those competencies that the learner has learned today needs to be reinforced tomorrow too, so that it becomes part and parcel of the person's everyday activity. Here's what we are saying, that if it is communication skills, yes, you'll be able to develop communicative skills at the end of the lesson. But because it is something that we keep coming across, we keep repeating in our lesson, by the time the person has gone through our education cycle, the person should be able to communicate effectively, either written or orally. Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Yes, so it is something that we could assess at the end of the lesson, and also something that we could assess at the end of the educational cycle.
Okay.
But in our case, it is lesson specific.
Okay.
That is why in planning your activity, you should be able to find the correlation between your performance indicator and then your exemplars. If your exemplars are not able to achieve your performance indicator, then there is something wrong. Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Yes. Can we make progress now?
Hi, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, can you share with me your understanding of the scheme of work? Hello?
Hi, sir.
Doc.
Yes. Please, what is your understanding of a scheme of work? What is a scheme of work? What is it?
Sir, I may say that it's a forecast that the teacher plan for the whole semester or a term. And the purpose is to look at the topics in from the lowest to the complex, so that you be in tune with it, so that you don't deviate from the syllables and other material that you have prepared for the lesson.
Okay, that's good. Patrick, thank you. Any other?
I think is the breaking.
Any
I
other?
think is the breaking down of the syllables into terms, or into let me say, to the timely basis, so that you can be able to teach
Okay.
them according to the syllabus.
Okay, that's also good. And the name is Sonjele. I think the last time you corrected me. Sonjele, right? Hello?
Yes, I know.
So this Peter.
Okay. So, yes, you're all right. So, once we have been given the resources that we are going to teach, the prescribed textbook, and I always say textbooks, other recommended reading materials, your syllabus, and you then have to design your scheme of work. So we say history, the syllabus is broad. And so, as it was said by Sonjele, you need to break it down into a yearly basis or a termly basis, right? So the topics might range from prehistory to somewhere, let's say, Africa in the Committee of Nations or what have you. There is a lot of content to be covered as far as history is concerned. So we have to break it down. We know that the course or the program is a 3-year program. So you need to break what you are going to do in year 1, year 2, year 3. In year 1, we need to further break it down into term 1, term 2, term 3. So that in each term, you know the content that you are supposed to cover. So they say the teacher has the arduous responsibility to tailor the content to suit the interest and developmental needs of the learner. Most at times, what we do is to look at how the curriculum or the syllabus has been structured and the content that have been prescribed for the year or the term, right? Usually it's year 1, year 2, year 3, right? And then we follow it chronologically. But at times, it might not be the best. I said it might not be the best. Why? Because in the immediate senior high school syllabus that has been replaced, the arrangement of the syllabus, or the arrangement of the then topics in the syllabus, they did not take into consideration the developmental needs of the learner. That curriculum was written by an archaeologist. So the person was not somebody, I'm talking about the history one, was not somebody who was into history education. So he arranged the topics the way he understood it from the archaeological point of view. That is why you start talking about Egypt and other East African communities. Before, when you come to year 2, they start introducing you to Ghana. And we pointed out that that approach was wrong. Why? Because we teach from the known to the unknown. If we do not know about Ghana, how do you expect us to go and appreciate things in Africa, and especially in Egypt, where their development strategies and patterns is completely different from the Ghanaian situation. So in this case, if you are a teacher of history, it would have been prudent to start with the second year's content in year one before you move the year one content to second year. But even that one, it is not all the content in year one, because we start by introducing what is history, various characteristics of history, before they go to Egypt. Are you following the argument?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
But thankfully, in the revised version, it has been changed. So once you talked about history, the various characteristics of history, then we start with Ghana. So from Ghana, then we move to Africa, so that it is logical and it follows the concept of known to the unknown, simple to complex. Is it clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
That is why we see that it is the teacher's responsibility to tailor the content to suit the interests and developmental needs of the learner. This task calls for planning and selection of contents to make teaching and learning manageable and enjoyable. So even with the content that has been given, you look at the strands and substrands. If you think you have to make some changes to enhance students' learning, a topic or a substrand that is in, let's say, week 3 can be brought to week 1 if you think it will give the students some foundation to understand what is in week 2. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yes, Doc.
So drafting of the scheme of work is one of the means to manage the teaching and learning enterprise. So you decide per the content, which ones can the student understand easily. They come first. Once they have that understanding, then you can build upon it. So the scheme of work is a carefully planned series of activities detailing the actions that a teacher would undertake in the future. And I think some of the your colleagues that define what scheme of work, it touched on this. That is a forecast of what activities that will be done in the future. So in other words, it says a forecast of work which is in the considered view of the teacher is adequate and suitable for a class over a defined period. So a scheme of work is a forecast of work that the teacher thinks can be managed by the student in a specified time period. A scheme of work is designed based on the substance in the history syllabus. So previously, what was the name for the substance?
There was subtopics.
Hello? For the subtopics, yes. So the scheme of work is designed based on the subtopics in the syllabus. A scheme of work is a careful planned series of activity. That's the repetition. So let's consider some key features.
The scheme of work is now called scheme of learning.
A scheme of learning, same problem. A scheme of learning. Why? Because you see, the focus, we want to shift the focus to the learner. Right? That is why we say scheme of learning, because the focus is on the learner. If we say scheme of work, teachers will still think that it is something that the teaching enterprise is DS and DS alone. So is it any well-drafted scheme of work? It have the following features. 1, the overview of the total course content. The overview. Then a sequential list of learning tasks. Then the relationship between the content and resource materials, the basis for long-range planning, training, and evaluation of the course. So every scheme of work will have these features. Let me find out, in your various schools, are these features represented in your scheme of work?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Is there any addition to what I have already said?
No. No. It's the same
Okay.
thing.
Anybody else? Anybody else? That in your scheme of work, there is something that is not captured in what I've just mentioned. Overview of the course, a sequential list of learning tasks, a relationship between the content and resource materials, and then the basis for long-range planning, training, and evaluation of the course. So let's go a bit deeper. We say there are no fixed duration for a scheme of work. What we mean is that it can be drafted to cover a year, a month, 3 months, 4 months, and what have you. So there is no fixed duration. However, in our secondary school, the content or the substance have been divided on a yearly basis. And each year or each term, each year has 3 terms. And each term lasts for 3 and 3.5 months. And usually we have either 13 weeks or 12 weeks in a term. So the scheme is drawn to cover these weeks. So ideally, a scheme of work should be prepared before classes begin. Is that also the case in your various schools?
Yes, Doc.
Okay.
Yes, Doc.
So we draw for the year, and the year has 3 terms, and each term is between 3 to 3.5 months. And then we have either 13 weeks or 12 weeks of classroom engagement. What are some of the things we note in planning our scheme of work? First, you should have a detailed. Hello?
Hello, sir.
Is somebody asking a question? Yes.
Hello, Doc. Please, this is Doc, I wanted to ask, as a teacher, can you go beyond your scheme of work when the need arises or not?
I think it depends on, can you go beyond your scheme of work? Yes, if you are teaching and realize that the student lacks some foundation, right, you can add on to your scheme of work. But because the scheme of work is a contract between you and the school, that these are the, let's say, the subtopics or the content that I have to cover, you must make sure that you cover that in addition to what you think might be relevant.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
okay.
It's like the contract. This course, these are the things that we have to cover. If you're able to go beyond, we've done well. But if you are unable to cover your scheme of work without justifiable reasons, then you have questions to answer why you are not able to cover. Is that clear?
It's clear, Doc. Thank you very much.
So, before you can draw your scheme of work, you should understand how the syllabus or the curriculum have been designed. And I keep stressing that it is not only the strands and sub-strands that you need to look at. You need to understand the philosophy, right? The aim or visions of the subject that you are teaching. And then the rationale, even before you move to the content. So acquaint yourself with the syllabus or the course outline to help you in the planning. It is when you have a detailed knowledge of the syllabus, then you can make the kinds of suggestions or changes that may be suitable to enhance student learning. So we said the subject teacher may not necessarily be involved in the initial stages of the curriculum development, but he or she is expected to interpret the curriculum and implement it correctly. In Ghana, our curriculum is planned by the Ministry of Education. I would say by the NACA. They are the ones that plans our curriculum for us. So it is centralized. And then it is implemented by you, the teacher. And we follow what we term as the fidelity approach. That is, you are implementing the curriculum as it has been designed. Are we clear?
Yes, sir. We are with you.
Hello?
Hi.
So
Yes, sir.
you are following exactly what has been planned. That is why it is important for you to understand what the syllabus or the curriculum entails. So this calls for a thorough understanding of the syllabus and the content, right, in order to achieve the stated learning outcome. So there is an objective to be attained. So if you don't follow the curriculum, that objective cannot be attained. The teacher is expected to act like a policeman or a judge who is not the drafter of a law, but he must enforce it. So it is very important that the teacher be thoroughly conversant with the curriculum in order to implement it successfully. How many of you were involved in the curriculum planning? Even let's say most of you are in a primary school or in the let's say basic school. How many of you are involved
None
in
of
planning
us.
at the basic school? None of you.
None of us.
But I think what about training of trainees? Nobody was part of the training of trainees. Hello?
The new curriculum.
Yes.
I was a master trainer at Sunyani. I was a master trainer, so I came and trained my district.
Okay. So you've done well.
Yes, please.
Is it for the senior high school or the junior high school?
Okay, let me see the junior high school.
The junior high school, but that's good.
Yes,
So
please.
you are a master trainer, that's good.
Yes, please. But they went to Sunyani. That's in 2019. Went to Sunyani. When they spent 1 week over there.
And then what he wouldn't tell us is that he got a lot of dough, he got a lot of money.
Yeah, they are not like that one there, but then we are very happy. Oh, please feed yourself as well. Any food you want, you eat, and oh, that one the government did it back then. Oh, we enjoyed back then.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Then they were not paid to those that are in the classroom.
so
They
pray
gave
that
you
next time
3 days.
if it's not today, it's tomorrow. You also be selected. Okay. So don't worry.
Okay, sir.
Tomorrow you also be selected. So you need to understand the syllabus very well. And then you cannot say that because I'm not part of the planners, I do not understand the syllabus. That's what we are all going to teach. So you need to take your time and internalize the content, the structure and everything. Understand the rationale that they want to achieve so that you can implement it successfully. So we say that you also need to be conversant with the content that students have already covered before the level that you are teaching. And then the content that may follow after you have also finished handling the class. So say in most cases, substance from the subject may not be arranged in the order in which they are supposed to be taught. That's why I'm saying that you do not take that because the curriculum or the syllabus follow a particular pattern, you must blindly follow it. At times, there might be a need for you to make some changes to enhance students' understanding. So some topics will require the knowledge of the previous ones, whilst others are quite independent. A teacher should not only identify essential learning content, but also arrange the content in a logical teaching order, considering the preceding and then the succeeding syllabus content. So you need, that's why we say that you read the content and then get in tune with how it has been arranged, so that if there is a need for you to rearrange to enhance student learning, then you do so. Hello? Yes, Patrick.
Hi. Hello, sir. Sir.
Hello.
Nowadays,
yes,
we could see that. Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
We are listening.
We are listening. We
can hear you.
It has been that, yeah, when you go to the the universities, nowadays, lecture method together with the presentation is being used. Can't we adopt same in secondary school because it will facilitate the teaching? Because sometimes we say that the teacher needs to be content driven, but sometimes to package the whole material and unpack them before the students, sometimes, as you said the other day, it's not easy. So if such strategy can be adopted in this day, won't you help the teaching and facilitate it well?
Okay. You see, it is the level of the learner that we also take into consideration. At the university, we are training adults. So the approach now is that we do not even, we don't spoon feed you. We want you to learn the content on your own with us guiding. That is why almost we say presentations and then papers. So the course that I have to teach, I can give you some reference materials for you to read and organize and write a paper. If you are writing a paper of, let's say, between 9 to, let's say, 15 pages, you need to read about 50 journals to be able to do that, right? So by reading the articles, you have in-depth knowledge on the subject before you can arrange it to write your 15 pages. But you are adults. In the senior high school level or in the senior secondary school level, the children or the students or the learners are young adults, right? Their critical thinking skills are not that developed. So the approach has to be a little different from the approach that is adopted at the university level. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Doc.
But son, nowadays, if you look at the STEM education, they have the smart board equipped with the marker board. So just as you are teaching and you find something very worrying, then you go to the smart board and then you tell them. Sometimes you go to the Google internet and then you link the learning so that the student will be abreast with the thing that you are teaching. So that is what I want to draw attention to.
Patrick, I understand you very well. I'm telling you from a fact that even in the universities, most of the universities do not have the smart board that you are talking about. Right? We don't have it. In fact, I carry my projector to class every day. I carry my own projector. And you see, the country is broad. Most secondary schools, even the socket in the classrooms don't work. The sockets, they don't work. Let alone to talk about smart board or electronic boards. So if we have the resources, yes, we can use these facilities so that learning becomes more interactive. But because we do not have them, that is why we are suggesting other innovative ways. That's why they say think per share, they say discussion, they say project work, they say journaling. Because we know that we do not have the resources. Most at times, I always say this, that there is no problem. I do not find any problem with our curriculum. It is about supervision. It is about resources. If the resources are there, the teachers will be guided to use the resources. But in our schools, what resource do we have? It is the Formica board, marker, duster. Asa? Am I lying?
It's true.
Hello?
That's
Yes.
true.
So this 21st century skills that we are talking about, we'll do our best. But if they want to achieve the sort of outcomes that they envisage, they need to resource the schools. They need to resource them. Unit 1, they say what is history. Go on the internet and look for various definitions of history. Look for pictures of the various philosophers in history and discuss them with the learners. Wanzika, who's money?
Teacher name.
Teacher Nina and Zika no answer no. And on internet. No go download the photos of Herodotus ne this. And they no. Then even if you have your own laptop, right, that you want to use, most schools don't even have the projectors. Overhead projectors you don't have. So how do you project? Or you use your phone to do it and then you take it around the class. Nambe. I call around Nambe. Who pays for that in your phone? So that is why I say innovative, because the contexts differ. There are schools that are well endowed, there are schools that are less endowed. But we are all supposed to implement the same curriculum and achieve the same performance indicators at the end of each lesson or each unit. So innovation comes in. I'm not saying that we should use the lack of resources as an excuse, but at times too, we can't dismiss it. Hello?
Hi, Doc. You are around.
Yeah, we can't dismiss it. So the teacher should not only identify essential learning content, but also arrange the content in a logical teaching order, considering the preceding and then the succeeding topics. Let's move on. The syllabus content of related subject. We said the mistake which many teachers make is to skim from their subject without considering the content of related subjects. Why do you think this is important? When the point you're making is that when you are drawing your scheme of work, you should consider other related subjects that the students are reading and how they have been schemed to guide you in planning or in selecting your scheme of work. Why do you think this is important?
Sir,
Hello?
sir, it may be that your syllabus may not exhaust all the topic. So let's assume that you have history syllabus and that of the social studies. So you use the and that will help you to make a very conclusive type of writing, because just as you compare the two, and then the material that you cannot find in your history syllabus, maybe you can find it in social syllabus. That will also help you to move.
Okay. Any other person? So Patrick is saying that maybe your content may not be exhaustive enough. Maybe it omits certain essential skills. So you look at other subject areas and see if that syllabus will cover those areas. And then so that you know that at least the student will have those competencies that they will need. Any other? That term as well. Tete, Maxwell. Hello?
Hi there.
Yeah, Maxwell, are you there? Okay. So, Nyele, can you help us? Why should I know? Why should I be concerned with the content in other subjects? Me, I was employed to teach history. So why should I worry myself about what they are doing in economics or in English or in mathematics? Hello?
I'll hire a lawyer to do it for me. I'll hire a lawyer. He's on the platform, Nicodemus. I will let Nicodemus help me.
Nicodemus.
Hello, sir. Doc.
Yeah. Why do you think it's important for us to know the content in other subjects?
I think it's important because to help you to drive knowledge from other subjects which have which may have link with the subject the subject at the subject of which you are teaching, and to help you to be confident in teaching your students without fear. That's what I can say.
Okay, that's very good. So Nicodemus is saying that there may be content that might complement, right, topics or substance that are in a history syllabus. So you plan it in such a way that students can use, or let's say we call it integrate some ideas or concepts from other disciplines into what you are saying, so that they enhance their learning. Any other? It will help you to know what they already know, so that you build upon it. You don't waste time, right? So there are topics that they may cut across, and at times too, it might even sound like a repetition, because there are same topics in social studies. You find the same topic in history. So once they've taught that, let's say in week 2, and you are teaching week 3, you want to review what they did in social studies as an introduction to help you introduce a new content in history. So it is important that you get conversant with how other subjects have been schemed. Again, too, if there are old schemes of work on the same subject that you are teaching, it makes sense that you review those scheme of work and adapt them rather than creating new ones. We say if a scheme of work is already available for the subject, it will be a waste of effort and time for the teacher to break new grounds. In this case, the teacher can revise the existing scheme to suit his or her student and to bring it up to date. So maybe there was a teacher that was teaching a subject before you. He has schemed for the entire year, right? It doesn't make sense to try and reinvent the wheel. You have to take his scheme of work, review it, and then you can adapt it to teach the students. Any question on this? Any question?
Let's continue.
Okay. Aside that, the teacher should also be familiar with reference materials and examinations. So what are the resources that are available for teaching that subject or that course? And then you need to get familiar with them before you put it in your scheme of work. There is nothing more disturbing than finding out that a topic that is already covered would have been more interesting, enjoyable, and even better understood if certain materials or teaching aids that are available in a school had been utilized. And you should always find out what are the resources that are available for teaching a particular subject, because it helps you in scheming as well as in your lesson plan preparation. Materials, they have atlas, they have projectors, they have podcasts, they have videos, they have, let's say, maps, so that you don't go and talk hours on end. They say a picture is worth more than 1,000 words. So if you have those resources there, use them and use them adequately. Then we say the type of examination that the students are being prepared for you should bear that in mind, that some levels require more revisional time than others, and therefore scheming for revision is also appropriate. So how would they be assessed? Aside your formative exams, are they writing standard-based exams, or it is a school-based assessment? Even the assessment, is it essay type or multiple choice type? Are they doing a project work, and what have you? These will guide you in your time allocations. It's like at the university level. What is the credit hours for this course? Hello?
3 hours.
Three credits. What does it mean?
Yes, please.
When we say a subject is 3 credits, what does it mean? Hello?
Hi. No, come again.
When we say a subject is 3 credits, what does it mean?
Doc, I think it means you use 3 hours to cover the period allotted.
Yes. That also means that in a week, you need to spend a minimum of 3 hours on this course. Do you get me? So
Yes, please.
you do not spend 3 hours on a 1 credit hour course. It means that you are not using your time appropriately, unless, and there's a caveat, that you may not understand that 1 credit, then you can use more time. But once you are using that more time, you know that you are losing out in a course that the credit hours is bigger. So at least in a week, you need to spend 3 hours on this course for you to understand the content and for you to pass and pass properly. So we say time estimation. We say although there are 13 weeks in 1 term, it is not usually possible to use all these for effective teaching for a variety of reasons. For the purpose of determining how much materials can be covered in any given term, it would be misleading to assume that a subject requiring 9 periods per week has 9 times 13 periods available for teaching. Why is this a wrong way of calculating your instructional time? They say in a week you have 9 hours, and then the term is 13 weeks. So the logical thing is to multiply your 9 by your 13 weeks to know the number of hours that you have to teach the subject. And we say this approach for calculating instructional time is wrong. Why is it wrong?
There may be co-curricular activity that intermittently can come, or there can be holiday, or it can be any eventual thing that happen, incident that you have no control of. So when something happens, it can even disrupt the whole teaching process, the learning and teaching process.
Okay, any other? Thank you, Patrick. Hello? Any other suggestion why you cannot just multiply the weeks that you have, the hours that you have to teach in a week, by the number of weeks that you have in a term to find your instructional time? Hello?
Some of the weeks are allocated for
Patrick.
Revision and
Patrick.
exams.
Yes.
For revision and exams.
Yes. So the 13 weeks, we have at least a week for revision and another week or 2 for exams. So out of the 13 weeks, at least 3 or 2 will be for preparation to write exams and then exams. So you cannot just multiply the number of weeks or hours that you have to teach by the weeks to get your instructional time. So say the number of effective teaching period varies according to both predictable and unpredictable interruptions. Effective teaching time must therefore be estimated before the topics are selected. So you need to know how many weeks, how many hours am I supposed to have been allocated for me in a week. Then you take out the time for the exams, the time for revision, and then you leave out a day or 2 for public holidays and other statutory holidays that you may have. right, to get a tentative instructional time for your class. We say most common interruptions that are likely to disrupt a scheme of work are public holidays, examinations, open day, sports day, and then midterm breaks. So all these things, you should calculate them and then plan.
If it did rain, or if it this day after rain, even last week, some of us couldn't go to school because it rained throughout the whole day. You could not go to school.
Yes. So yes,
can travel.
so I'm saying that
You have to travel to
you have to make adjustment. And these days, you need to consider workshops, professional development workshops. So all these things you need to factor so that you know that, okay, this is the time that are available to me for me to teach. And therefore, you scheme accordingly so that your scheme of work is not disrupted. Then we say time estimation proper. The teacher or the instructor should check with the administration of the school for dates for such event before scheming. Although the new syllabus gives time estimate for each topic or subtopic or strand or substrand, this should be taken as guidelines only. So that scheme 1, term week 1, week 2, week 3 are only guidelines, right? Which district or which region, which district have they closed down because of some clashes, community clashes?
Kwanta.
In Kwanta district.
Kwanta South.
Yes. So because of conflict, they can't go to school. But meanwhile, the people have to repair and write the same BEC or SSE with everybody else, SSE with everybody else. So we need to put in some interventions, right, to manage all these unforeseen eventualities. So the final adjustment need to be made depending on the time available for teaching. So now let's look at some of the components of a scheme of work. This is what I want to hear from you. What are some of the components of a scheme of work?
Date is one, dog. Date.
The date. Okay.
Topic or strands or substrand. Then teacher, learner resources.
Patrick, don't say all. Let's listen to somebody else. So we mentioned dates.
Teacher learner activities.
Teacher learner activities. What else? What else? Hello?
The core competencies. The
core
competencies you expect. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Teacher learner resources.
Okay. So these are the components of the scheme of learning. We talk about the organization. When we say organization, what do you refer to as the organizations?
As our schools.
Yes. Which school are you teaching? At the Southern College in Fancy, because I'm in Cape Coast, that's why I mentioned Cape Coast schools. So put your school there. Learners level. Form 1, Form 2, Form 3. Why are these important? Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Why is it important to put these things there? The school, the level, the other is Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, the subject you are teaching, whether it's history, government, and stuff. The term, term 1, term 2, term 3. Why are these things important? Hello?
We are on.
But I've asked the question, nobody is answering me.
So sometimes
Hello, Doc.
it's meant for reference.
Yes, Sylvester.
So for reference.
Yes, for reference. So that if somebody picks his books, he knows exactly which school. Because let's say, if you leave your scheme of work somewhere, we should know which school you are scheming for. And at times you can be transferred from one school to the other, right? So you might have a lot of scheme of work from various schools. So you need to be specific. Then the level. You might be teaching various levels, from 1, from 2, from 3. So which level are you scheming for? And then those in primary school or in the junior high school, you need to be specific on the very subject that you are scheming for, as well as which term. Is it term 1, term 2? Because the content selection differ. Aside this, the date that you prepare the scheme of work should be there, right? Then, as we said, the substance will also be there. In addition to the date that you prepared it, the date that you revise that scheme of work should also feature. Because if, let's say, you are teaching this year, and then you are teaching the same subject next year, you don't take it for granted that because you schemed last year, you want to follow the same content, arrangement of content as you did last year. Maybe in the course of teaching, you realize that students were finding it difficult to understand a particular strand or substrand, and therefore you want to push it forward or you want to push it backwards to enhance their learning. So when you do that, the date in which you review that scheme of work also ought to appear there, so that we know that this is not just last year's own, which we are just adopting it this term, but we have actually gone through it, reviewed it, and we have okayed the arrangement as well as everything that is in the scheme of work. Is it clear?
Yes, sir, Doc.
Yes, sir.
So the date for it.
Hello, Doc.
Then, yes, hello.
This is Maxwell.
Okay, Maxwell.
Yes, please. What I want to add to what you said is one of the reasons why you fix all those things is sometimes if, let's say, example, I, Maxwell, have prepared a lesson plan down, and unfortunately something occur or happen on me and I cannot take that lesson, a colleague teacher can handle that lesson on my behalf. So it's a guide to that teacher.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Maxwell.
Welcome.
And then the weeks have to be there. Then the number of periods that you have, whether it's a double period, whether you teach twice a week, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, you teach every day, 5 times in a week, everything has to be there, right? Whether it's a single period, a double period, a triple period, all that have to be indicated. Because you see, it is the periods that you use to select your substance. Your substance might have a lot of content than others, right? So you consider all those things in your scheme of work. Then obviously the strands, the substance, then your content standards, learner indicator, your resources, then remarks. After you've schemed, right, and then you start implementing, there should also be a column for remarks. So that if you scheme and you are unable to fulfill or deliver that content, you come and write a comment in the remarks column to show anybody that that particular content or substance was not adequately treated because of stated reasons. That is why we need the remarks also in your scheme of work. Any question on how to scheme for a course? Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Is there any question?
Doc, well understood.
Okay. So now let's make progress. So there's a template of a scheme
Hello,
of work.
Doc.
Yeah, hello.
Hello, Doc. This is Justice.
Yes. Yeah,
Doc,
I'm listening.
yeah, a friend of mine, I was arguing with him. He said both the scheme of work and then the lesson plan limits a teacher. And then I asked why. He said it is because as a teacher, you have to go.
It is question. Can you start again?
Yes, he was saying that. Yes, he was saying that the scheme of work and then especially the lesson plan limits a teacher. Yes, and then he said it is because as a teacher, you need not to go contrary to the that particular plan. Either the system that you may adopt is important or not. You have to go directly on the lesson plan that is in front of you. So he is of the view that it limits a teacher, and then it's like I said why, and then he gave us this explanation.
No, it does not limit you. It is a guide, right? So that there can be accountability. If there's no guide, how can we account for the content that we're supposed to cover? So the scheme of work is saying that I have so much work to do. This is how I have sequenced the work that I have to do. Week 1, I'll do this. Week 2, I'll do this. Week 3, I'll do this. So everything is covered. So we can assess whether you've been able to do it or not. And it also helps in your self-evaluation. If you don't have a lesson plan, right, the day that you go off, how would you know that you've gone off and you didn't teach the content that you're supposed to teach? You, as well as the learner, should be able to know that this is what we set out to do, and then we assess whether we've been able to achieve it or not. However, a teacher can change some of the activities that he puts down in the lesson notes if he finds those activities not to be beneficial in the course of delivery. Are you with me?
Yes, Doc.
Hello? I plan to use a particular method, but when I use the first method,
hello, Doc, please, I'm listening.
The responses that I got, the feedback that I got from the learners is that that method did not help me to achieve my lesson indicator. I could vary it. Then in my remarks column, in my lesson notes, I said that I wanted to use this method, but when I used it, the student did not understand it. So I changed to this. It means that the next time I'm teaching that particular subject, I will not use the old method, but I'll use the new one that gave me the result. So you can change only when it leads to enhanced student learning, when it improves upon a teaching and learning enterprise. Otherwise, the teacher becomes like a technician. You follow verbatim what is there, and there's no much creativity. But as a teacher, your hallmark as a teacher is to be able to reflect whilst we are teaching, and then make changes if there is a need to. So, scheme of work lesson plan is a must for every teacher. Do you get me? Hello?
Yes, Doc. Yes, Doc.
All of us will digress a bit when we are teaching. Without a scheme of work, you go on and on and not even know. Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Hello,
We are
Doc.
around.
No, something happened that I thought that I lost you. Maybe there was a fluctuation in the electricity or something. So, I'm coming, just a minute. So the scheme of work is very, very important. And it's something that all of us need to have in our class. So there's a sample of it. Can you see the sample of the scheme of work, scheme of learning? Hello?
Doc, we can
Hello,
see
Doc.
it.
You can see it. For me, I can see it. It is clear over here.
Okay. Okay, the text is a bit faint, so when I give it to you, you see it. So we have
Okay.
columns as well as rows, right? So we have the weeks, the strand, the substrand, the content standard, the lesson indicator, and then the resources. So with one, we have history, historical inquiry, and writings. That's a strand. Then for the substrand, we have nature and scope of history. Then for the content standard, we have demonstrate understanding of the origins, meanings, and nature of history as a discipline. Indicators: trace the origins and meanings of the word history using conventional and non-conventional resources. That's indicator 1. 2, investigate some common misconceptions associated with the study of history. Then 3, justify why the study of history is relevant to individuals and society. What are the resources that are available? We have charts, posters, and pictures. So this is your scheme of learning. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Doc.
We can't see.
So now, yes, I understand that the font size
The screen.
is a bit small. If I go to the presentation mode, you won't see anything. That's why it is like that. But at least I've read it out, so you know what is there. Now, when we say the learning indicators, is a learning indicator should describe what learners should know or be able to do at the end of a course or a lesson that they could not do before. So you are stating clearly what learners should be able to do or know at the end of the lesson. The learner indicators should be brief, clear, and specific. Hello?
Hello, Doc.
Specific statements of what learners will be able to do at the end of a lesson as a result of activities, teaching, and learning that has taken place. There is a strong correlation between the learning indicator and the learning outcome, or performance indicator. The learning indicator that you see can be based on 3 areas of learning: knowledge, skills, and attitude. So let's do a small exercise. Think about any performance indicator that you have in your mind. And then
Doc, please take it again.
Hello.
Please take it again for us.
I'm saying that think about any performance indicator, one performance indicator, and then write one learning indicator for me. I want the responses in the comments or in the chat box. Hello.
Hello, Doc.
So think about the performance indicator.
Performance indicators well.
I'm saying that you are already in the classroom, you know what performance indicators are. So think about one performance indicator in your head, and out of it, draft a lesson indicator. What you want the learners to be able to do at the end of the lesson, and then draft a learning indicator for me, and put it in the comment box, in the chat box. I want to see the learner indicator, the performance indicator, and then the learning indicator. So I'm waiting for you.
Performance indicator.
And then learning indicator. At the end of the lesson, what would you assess the learners that learning has taken place? What do you expect them to exhibit? That's your performance indicator, right?
Okay.
And then craft a learning indicator for me. You are not new to these things, are you? Hello?
Hi, Doc.
You are not new to this, right?
Yes, yes.
And so give me examples, let me see. You can even open your lesson note and then give me examples, let me see. And let's assess some of them. We say it should be brief, it should be clear, it should be specific. Right? And then it should assess 3 areas: knowledge, skills, and attitude. Cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So let me see. You understand what I'm about you to do, right? Hello?
Hi.
You understand what I'm about you to do?
Yes.
Okay, so just give me some examples. Let me see. Everybody should try it.
Hey, you just mention my name and I didn't hear.
It's rather unfortunate I cannot get my message box.
Oh, the message box is just by, usually it's on the right. You see something like a chat box. If that you are using a phone call, it's still there. Right.
Where is the chat? Look at the diagram.
You might see a place where we have something like a human being. Just by it, you might find something like the message sign on your phone.
Like, you're not feeling comfortable being with me.
Please, let's see some examples. You see, with these things, we need to practice them. To me, it's not so much about even the marks that you get to, but it's about acquiring some knowledge that you are going to implement in your classroom. Right? So don't go and be writing B1 plus 2, B1 dot this plus this. No, you should know what it is. And if you don't get a sample of the syllabus from the net, you as a teacher should look at the scheme of work and be able to draw it yourself or draft it yourself. That is the essence for doing this course, not necessarily the maths.
Oh, were you comfortable? We're not comfortable because I consider because that you were not eat. I can consider.
Hello? Oh, nothing has come through. Oh, yeah, in time. So, Don Gaja, learners will be able to learn how to prepare a scheme of learning for basic one. Let it be in history. Take your history curriculum and give me examples. I want to see the performance indicator and then the learning indicator. So, Donjeli, please try again, okay?
Okay, sir.
Yes. Try again.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's why I wanted it to anyway.
Please try your hands or something. Type something for me.
Your own is not mine. How you handle your issues or your
Hey, hello. Oh, so far nothing.
So you are crying, you don't have time that you go in there.
So Patrick Edujenfi says,
Or you could
learning indicator by the end of the lesson, the student demonstrate the knowledge of leadership strategies adopted by the early centralized state, performance indicators, communication skills, critical thinking. Okay, so let's all look at it. By the end of the lesson, the student demonstrates knowledge of leadership strategies adopted by early centralized states. Patrick.
So did they call your family to find out?
How many strategies do you have in mind? So is this learning indicator specific enough?
So, you know, what you were saying.
Hello?
Because we are discussing, I decided to make it this way. But if the on the paper, the lesson would a lot of it. Because from maybe leadership, you can even talk about some of the strategy like using weapons, the trade, and other.
But you see, the challenge I have with that, the lesson indicator as it has been presented is not very specific. Right? If you say demonstrate knowledge of leadership strategies, what kind of strategies or leadership strategies are you talking about? Right? And how does that lead to development of communication skills and then critical thinking? What's the correlation between the lesson indicator and then the performance indicator? Do you get the point I'm raising?
Sir.
Oh.
Hello?
Hi, sir.
The just one.
The point I'm making is that it needs to be specific. So if we say leadership strategies, how many are you going to assess them? And then what is the relationship between that and then the communication skills and the critical thinking that you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm looking.
Hello?
That maybe we will set example using maybe your safety being the Ashanti king. We also talk about Dewa being the Mole Dagani, and then the Gunja, we have the
I'm coming. So,
the Wula
so what leadership strategies are you talking about? When you say leadership strategies, what are you talking about?
Yeah, mentioning names.
So I was looking at maybe using one maybe leading the people to fight. That is true. When they go for battle, and then when it comes to trade, maybe the leader will leave the forefront of collecting taxes and other tributes from those.
So what I mean is that when you say leadership strategies, what leadership strategies do you have in mind?
Organization, coordinating, planning.
Agree. It should be specific. It should be either two learning strategies. It should be specific. That's what the word is. It should be specific. It's not specific.
So
either two strategies or three strategies so that the learner can be able to cover it. This strategy means they can be 10 or they can be 20 or.
So if we are talking about leadership strategies, we have authoritative, right? We might have democratic, we might have laissez-faire. So you say that students demonstrate knowledge of 3, right? 3 leadership strategies adopted by early centralized states, so that we know that we are assessing students on 3 strategies, and 3 strategies are leadership strategies are democratic, authoritarian, and laissez-faire, right? So in your examples, the activities that you do, that is where we will see whether you are instilling communicative strategies or critical thinking in what you do.
Okay.
If you have this as a performance indicator,
okay,
and then you are using lecture,
okay,
and answer,
okay,
right?
Okay.
It does not gender critical thinking.
Okay.
Right. But
Okay.
if you do a sketch, a role play of, let's say, different rulers, right,
Okay.
and ask the student to tease out the leadership strategies adopted by these leaders and make comparison,
Okay,
then you can say you are teaching critical thinking.
critical
Do you get the point I'm making?
Okay. So
Yes.
I'm with
So
you.
please, that is why I wanted the example, so that we will correct them as we move along, so that you don't repeat that in your lesson notes. Right?
Okay.
So,
okay.
And then the lesson indicator, as we all know, it helps us to measure whether a particular lesson produced a desired learning outcome. A lesson indicator helps us to clarify, to organize, and to prioritize learning. They help you and your student to evaluate your progress and encourage them to take responsibility for the learning. So please, the scheme of work and then the lesson indicators are very, very important. So key element of the lesson indicator: to be complete and effective, objectives must, it's supposed to be indicators, must include two elements. One, define what student will learn, and then give an indication of how the learning will be assessed. So in Patrick's case, right, if we say at the end of the lesson, the student would demonstrate knowledge of leadership strategies adopted by early centralized states. His focus is on acquisition of what? Knowledge. So the questions that you should ask under this learning indicator should be one that assesses knowledge, not application, not evaluation, not creativity, but knowledge. Patrick, are you clear?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Hi, sir.
Because you said that you want them to demonstrate knowledge. So it limits the kinds of assessment that you can use.
Okay.
Are you clear?
Yes, sir.
If we say the students should be able to apply, the students should be able to critique, it hints on how you are going to assess that learning indicator that you have drafted. So it should define what they should learn, and it should also give an indication of how you are going to assess your learners. Lesson indicators, therefore, are often more than one indicator in a lesson. So usually we have more than one indicator based on the time that is available to you as a teacher. However, the indicator does not end there. If it did, a lesson indicator would read like a table of content. For an indicator to be complete, it must give students some idea of how their learning is going to be measured. Unless your indicators are measurable, you will not be able to produce the evidence necessary to show that the indicator were learned. That is why I said be specific on the strategies that you want the student to demonstrate knowledge on. So 3, 2, 4, 5. That is specific.
Okay.
Are we clear? Hello?
Yes, sir. So, sir, in this case, you mean we should measure? We should measure the
yes, the indicator should be measurable.
So here measurement will come in.
No, what I'm saying is that the indicator should be something that we can measure. Right? If it's too open, right? And somebody gives you 3 strategies, somebody gives you 5 strategies, somebody gives you 1 strategy. How are you going to mark it? How are you going to assess?
Okay.
That is why I, in particular, I even have problem when you say state some strategies. If you say some, and somebody state 2, he has stated some.
Okay.
Somebody state 1, he has stated some. So be specific.
Okay.
If it's 2, 2, if it's 3, 3, if it's 4, 4. And make sure that you teach 4 or you teach 5. You can even teach 5 and assess 3 or assess 2. But you cannot assess more than you have taught.
Okay.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Is there any question? Any question?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. So we say that indicators should be written as a single sentence. It shouldn't be a complex sentence, very simple. Indicators must include an action verb that helps the student understand what they are going to learn and how they will be assessed. To explain, examine, discuss, outline, evaluate, etc. It should be that clear. Are we clear? So we say in the Bloom taxonomy, education psychologist Benjamin Bloom looks at verbs and how they are related to learning, dividing them into 6 levels of thinking. These verbs: remembering, understanding, application, analysis, evaluation, and creating, are an excellent stepping point for writing effective lesson indicators. Hello?
Sir.
Yes. So your indicators, when you are drafting your indicators, be guided by this Bloom's taxonomy. It starts from knowledge and ends with creativity. And it will help you draft very specific, measurable lesson indicators. So I say a simple lesson indicator that meets the criteria listed above might read: examine 4 reasons that informed the overthrow of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. How many reasons do we expect the student to provide? 4. Right? And then we said examine. So examine doesn't fall under, is not remembrance. It is not understanding. It is not application. It is analyze. To examine is to analyze. Hello?
So we are.
Are you with me? Right? So we say analyze. That's what we say. So the student is clear in his mind what do you expect from them at the end of the lesson. Right?
Yes, sir.
I would say by stating the indicator from the start, students would understand exactly what is expected of them. That is why we say always share your lesson indicators with the student. So after reviewing previous knowledge, after they trying to tease out the topic and write the topic on the board, the next thing you have to do as a teacher is to share your lesson indicator so that the students know exactly what they are supposed to learn that day, and so that they can evaluate their own learning as well as your teaching. If you don't tell us what we are going to learn today, how would we know whether we'll be able to achieve our objective or not? Hello?
Sir, we are with you.
So we say, despite everything else that might be taught in a lesson, the student will be able to measure their own learning. And if they can successfully examine the factors that led to the overthrow of Nkrumah, as in an example, they know that yes, they have been able to achieve their aim. If after the class they can't examine why Nkrumah was overthrown, then it means that they did not get much from the lesson. So in addition, the indicator gives the instructor an indication of how to prove that learning has taken place. I said that learning is internal to the learner. So you can only know whether learning has taken place or not when the learners produce an outcome, right? And the measure is your learning indicator. So the teacher should create an assessment that he should perform the teacher should create an assessment that has student performance temperature conversation. The result of this assessment shows the teacher whether students have mastered the indicator or not. Right? We say one major challenge with drafting of learning indicator is the selection of the appropriate verbs. So should I use explain? Should I use analyze? Should I use discuss? Should I use that is the challenge that at times we have. So say granted that the Bloom taxonomy of learning provides some directions to the selections of appropriate verbs, teachers sometimes use verbs that are vague or not measurable. And what are some of these ones? Know, appreciate, grasp, understand. So don't write learning indicators with these verbs. How are you going to assess know? How will you know that I know? How are you going to assess appreciate or grasp or understand? Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, sir. We are
So
with you.
these ones are vague. They are not specific and they are not measurable. So we shouldn't use them. Right? So those are some of the challenges with these verbs that we often use. We said this indicator is specific because it has a defined body of knowledge. We use an example. Learners should be able to know the reasons for the coming of Europeans to Africa. We are saying that it is specific because we know the body of knowledge that the students are expected to learn. And that is the coming of the reasons for the coming of the Europeans. However, it is not measurable because we cannot measure no. Is it clear enough?
Yes, sir.
So we should resist from making some of these or drafting some of these lesson indicators. Yes. So we say instead, the indicator should have read, explain 4 reasons. So 4, we can measure 4. So if by 4 you give us 3, that means that you are losing some variable marks. If you give 2, we know that you have lost some marks. If you give 4, we know that you have fulfilled the requirement of the lesson indicator. So create your lesson indicator first, and many questions that needs to be answered about your lesson will fall in place. Once you draft a good lesson indicator, it guides you on even the kinds of examples to use, and then how it is going to be assessed. Any question? Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Is there any question to this point?
Hello, sir.
Hello.
So,
Yeah, hello, Doc.
Yes.
To be able to
Doc.
bring in performance.
I think one at a time. Let me hear Douglas first. Patrick, please hold on. Let's hear Douglas. Hello.
Doc.
Yeah, Douglas. Douglas, we are listening.
Yeah, hello. My question is the indicators.
Yeah.
Yeah, Doc, please, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Look at the indicators, the learning indicators. Yeah, the learning indicators and the performance indicators. It's true we are in the classroom teaching, all right, but we find it very difficult to distinguish between the two. So, in your explanation, you made us to understand that the learning indicators are what the children will be able to do or should know, and it should be brief. I've gotten that point, but the performance indicators is where I'm not getting it well, because
the performance indicator is what the learners should be able to do, right, at the end of the lesson. What skill, what competencies should they exhibit, right, at the end of the lesson? So we said communication skills, collaboration skills, critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, right? Those are the competencies that the students should have at the end of the lesson. Are we clear?
So, yeah, so can we say that the performance indicators are the same as the objectives that we used to have in the previous curriculum?
The objectives is the same as the learning indicators, right? Previously, we didn't have anything like the performance indicator. The performance indicator is that what will show that the learner has acquired these skills.
Hello, Doc. Yeah, I'm following you. I'm following you.
Yes, sir.
What will show that he has gone through this lesson? We are saying that what will show is that the person can argue logically. Did you hear me? What will show that the learner have acquired this competence? And we are saying that he should exhibit critical thinking. He should exhibit creativity. He should exhibit communication skills. He should exhibit problem solving skills. Right? But whilst I am teaching, right, what would the teacher, what would I see? What would tell me that the person can exhibit communication skills? Is the lesson indicator. Are we clear? Hello?
Yes, Doc.
So there is a correlation between all the previous from let's say from the strand, sub-strand, performance indicator, everything is connected. That is why you need to understand the thing in its entirety, it holistically, before you can implement it appropriately. Are you with me?
Yes, Doc.
So you don't get confused. So we'll get examples and then it will be clear to all of us. That's why I'm taking my time. Right. So examples of measurable lesson indicator. We say discuss, assess, list, outline, compare, identify, define, name, formulate, analyze, differentiate, demonstrate, evaluate. Right? These are measurable. But the ones we measured earlier, to know, to grasp, to understand, they are not measurable. Hello? So, if we are testing knowledge, if our goal is for the student to demonstrate knowledge, are you with me?
Hi, sir.
Hello?
Hi, Doc.
If we want the student to demonstrate knowledge, right, in drafting the lesson indicators, these are the verbs that we should use. So we say to find or to remember information, memorize information, to tell, to uncover, to show, to state, to define, to name, to write, to recall, to recognize, to list, to label. All these variables, all these verbs, sorry, is to test knowledge. So if you say list, sequence, state, view, it is all knowledge. And this is at the first level of knowledge in terms of difficulty. As far as our profile dimension is concerned, knowledge is the simplest form. And when we are testing knowledge, usually we are testing memorization, we are testing recall. And it's names, dates, places in history. Hello? So you cannot be testing knowledge and say evaluate. Are we clear? You have moved beyond the level of knowledge. So if it's knowledge, then these are the verbs that we are supposed to use. Are we clear? Yes?
Yes, sir, we can make progress.
Can we make progress? Okay. Then we come to comprehension. When we say comprehension, we are testing student understanding of information. And once we understand information, we can restate it in our own words. We can paraphrase, we can summarize, we can translate, we can compare, we can appreciate, we can select, we can indicate, we can illustrate, we can represent, we can formulate, we can explain, we can classify, we can translate, explore. So these verbs is used to test understanding. So the common ones that we use is to describe, to discuss, to explain. When we state those verbs, we are testing comprehension. That is understanding. Are we clear?
Yeah, yeah, sir.
Hello? Now let's go. You see, we are moving a bit further.
Okay.
Now, if you are testing application, we are testing the student's ability to use the information that we have given him to solve a problem or to transfer the information from one setting to another setting. When we are doing that, they are applying the knowledge. Right? So apply, assess, change, chart, choose, demonstrate, determine, develop, establish, produce, restate, report. All these are variables that we use when we are testing application. Solve, especially in the case of mathematics, it is application. So we are applying a particular theory, a particular principle to solve a problem. Hello? Hello.
Hi, sir. How with you?
Then
Hi,
we move
sir.
further to analysis. When we say we are analyzing, we are taking information apart to identify its components and determine argument, logic, semantics, etc. Right? So we say generalize, scrutinize, estimate, compare, observe, detect, classify, discover, explore, distinguish, categorize, right? All these are verbs that we use when we want to analyze or we want students to take information apart and use it in different contexts. Then we go to synthesis. When we say we are synthesizing, is to create new ideas or things by combining information in a unique product to write, to explain, to integrate, to formulate. So the information is there, but it might not be related. There is no relations, but you have to reorganize it to make sense, to follow a particular pattern. When you do that, they are saying you are synthesizing. So we say compose, categorize, construct, create, design. Then you are doing synthesis. Then ultimately we say evaluate. When we say evaluate, you are making judgment. So you are not only telling us the positives and the negatives, but you have to make a definite judgment, right? That is when you are taking a position. You give a question and say they should either accept or reject and give reasons. And that is evaluation. You are passing judgment. So we say to make judgment about knowledge, to make decisions and to support views requires understanding of value. To evaluate, interpret, to decide, to solve, to rate, to appraise, to verify, to assess, to test, to judge. When we are doing any of these, we say we are doing evaluation. Any question to this point? Hello? Hello? Any question? Patrick? Hello? Hello?
Hi there.
So, what are the things like a checklist for writing lesson indicators? Some of the questions that you can ask yourself when you draft your lesson indicators. Does the learning indicator reflect a step in achieving an overall lesson aim? Do your lesson activities ensure that students would achieve the learning outcome? Is the lesson indicator measurable? Is the learning indicator student-centered? So if all your lesson indicators is on the knowledge domain, recall means that they are just going to say or try to remember something that you taught them. It is more geared towards students, right? But if they are solving problems, then it is geared towards more of the learner. Have you used effectively action verb that targets the desirable level of performance? Right? Lesson indicators are an integral part of instructional planning and enactment. It should be drafted carefully to reflect the lesson outcome required of the learner. It should be specific, it should be measurable, it should be attainable. Any questions so far? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Rosa.
So,
We are there.
any question on the lesson? Hello?
Let's move on, sir.
Hello,
Hello.
So let's really look at identifying. Now we have our team of work. We have looked at our lesson indicator. Now let's look at the teaching and learning resources. How to identify the appropriate teaching and learning resources that will complement your lesson indicators. And I'll take a few minutes to do that, and then we'll call it a day. We say history as a subject is abstract. I keep making this point. So history specializes in the past, and the past is unobservable. The past is distant from the present, which means that a history teacher needs to repackage the history content to enable today's learner to relate to the past. If you have listened to me, you realize that
somebody's mic is on and it's disturbing.
Hello.
Someone's mic is on.
Yeah, I think it's
Sonyele.
Sonyele. Okay.
Sojele.
Please.
Yeah, Sojele.
I think he has done a needful.
It's better now.
Yeah, Patrick.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Patrick, do you want to ask a question?
Sir,
You want to ask a question?
I was confused a bit, and I want you to clarify. I want to know where we can fix the role play. So, what are some of the verbs we can use to indicate role play? Whether to go through evaluation, synthesis, or comprehension or application.
Role play is part of the examples that we use. But if, let's say, you are drafting your lesson indicator, right? You could use demonstrate, right? Yeah. Demonstrate knowledge about this and this. But how you go about it is that you use role play, where, yes, the student can observe, demonstrate a play being enacted, and after that, you tease out the lesson from the lesson, right? Hello? We'll get to the examples in the course of our stage, so don't worry. So we say one effective way of doing this is through the use of teaching and learning resources. You see, we need to use a lot of teaching and learning resources in our teaching, particularly as history teachers, because what we are talking about, usually the incidences, students cannot relate because time have changed. But if we use videos, if we use pictures, if we use real life examples, then the students can better appreciate what we are trying to teach them. But if we continue to use this question and answer and then copying of notes, it becomes difficult for them to try to comprehend what we are trying to teach them, right? So the purpose and role of teaching and learning resource do not only consist of making the educational process more attractive and interesting, but also of encouraging active learning, the development of different skills, and the adoption of desirable values and attitudes of the student. If, let's say, you are teaching about various definitions of history, and then you bring pictures of the actual scholars or the philosophers, right? It makes them know that, okay, these are actual human beings that actually lived, right? But their physical features, we can even relate to the kinds of philosophies or definitions that they espoused. So let's use teaching and learning resources. We say teaching and learning resource materials are the materials that are made use of by the instructor in imparting the information in terms of academic subject and concepts to the student. These are regarded as not only fundamental in enriching the teaching and learning process, but also in leading to overall functions of the educational institution in an effective manner. So we can't do without teaching and learning resources, particularly in our case as history. And then we say that it helps to present, we say in the present existence, the use of technologies and the internet has acquired prominence. The children that are coming, they start using technology at a very tender age. So if you do not infuse these teaching aids in your teaching, they can't follow you, can't sustain their attention. Those of you with children that are under 5 years, if the child gets your phone, it does not need you. He only comes to you when he's hungry. Because there's a lot of interesting things on the phone, particularly in YouTube, that they watch. Try and to talk to that child. And within 5-10 minutes, the child is bored. He's restless. He wants to leave. But your phone can sustain him for an hour or more. Can you relate to that? Hello?
Yes,
It's true.
yeah, Doc.
Yes. So let's use it, right? And to prepare the lesson notes. So when we are preparing lesson notes, we should also take in mind the teaching and learning resources that will complement our teaching. So aside the technology, we say they are modern scientific and innovative methods in facilitating teaching. And then it helps to make the lesson more interactive. But what are the purposes of utilizing these teaching and learning resources? One, we say it motivates students. It develops creativity. And then it revokes prior knowledge. So before you use the TLM, you should ask yourself, why do I want to use this TLM? Am I using the TLM to evoke previous knowledge? Am I motivating the student to continue to be interested in what I'm teaching? Or I want to develop creativity in the student? So we say we encourage the process of understanding, decoding, organizing, and synthesizing educational content, logical thinking, and reasoning, communications, interactions, and contributions to the development of different skills, the acquisition of value of students, as well as the retention of valuable knowledge, skills, and attitude. You can show a picture, just a picture, and that it might evoke so much emotion in a class. And that picture will stay a very long time in the image or in the memory of the learner. I remember when we were at, I think, secondary school, that was the first time I saw a woman undergoing an abortion. It was very bizarre. that at that tender age, I decided that if either by mistake or peradventure, I impregnate any girl, the girl will give birth. I will never agree to an abortion, because I saw abortion to be murder, pure and simple. I've read about how abortion is done in books, but when I watched it with my eyes, right, I felt that it is not something that any human being should ever do. That's why they say the picture is worth more than 1,000 words. You find a lady that is lying on this doctor's operation theater bed, less spread, and they take implements that you would think that is being used by a carpenter, insert it into her womb, tear the baby piece by piece out. So you see the limbs have been torn and brought out, the feet torn and brought out, and finally the head brought out and scratched, and it stayed with me that I would never consent to an abortion. If you ask me any question on that DNC that I watched, I'll be able to answer, because it was that graphical. If I had read it in a book, do you think it would have lasted in my memory to date? And as I'm trying to recollect it, I can remember exactly what I saw on that video. You see, that is the impact of technology. And so we should try and download some of these videos about historical events and incidences, and then share it with our students. And I'm telling you that they don't have to memorize anything for the examination. Any question? Hello.
Hi, sir. How are you?
So I want us to end here.
Okay.
And then we'll continue, God willing, next week.
Okay.
Please, we have a lot to cover. Right, we are on unit 3. We have 3 more slides to go.
Wow.
So please.
Sir, in no time, we are going to start the mid-semo.
I know. They even asked us for the questions.
Okay.
So please, let's try and start on time so that we can finish the content. And then also discuss the exam. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So as usual, I'll put the slides on the page. Do what we go through so that when we come next week, you can quickly finish this and take on the task for next week. Enjoy your evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.